Hello, it's Ryan from 2minutetennis.net, and in this video, I decided to take my shirt off and demonstrate some amazing two-handed backhands to help improve your backhand. Who am I kidding? My wife wishes I looked like this without a shirt on. So here's Fernando Verdasco, and I'm going to show you just some really simple things that you can do. The first is the moment the ball comes to your backhand, get your body sideways. You can see he does that right away. And he has beautiful shoulder and hip separation. What I mean by that is, notice his hips are sideways to the court, but his shoulders are rotated more, right? He's rotating his upper body more than his lower body. That's the coil that's going to allow him to uncoil later on in the shot. Another way of looking at this is his opponent can see the back of his front shoulder. Another way of saying it is his chin and his shoulder are really close together. When you take your racket back on your two-hander, get your lower body pretty much sideways to the court, but take your upper body farther and show that back shoulder. Again, this is all for the ability to coil and then be able to uncoil into the shot. The amount of racket speed where you can put spin on the ball, you can crush the ball for a winner. It's incredible when you turn your body this much, what happens. The next thing is I want to show you his racket height. This is called two heads are better than one, or two-headed monster. The racket head and his head are at the same height. This is all for racket speed. If we take this all the way to contact, and by the way, this video is courtesy of Essential Tennis. They allowed me to use this video of Fernando here. But I just want you to notice that's where the contact is going to be. And Verdasco knows that. And so he's set up for that exact contact point, which is just going to be right in front of his front foot. So he is going to drop the racket down below contact and then come up. Watch him follow that line. He drops down below and then he comes up to contact. So this portion right here, between here and here, this is all for racket speed, gravity-assisted racket speed. He wants his racket to go down with gravity, like riding your bike down a hill, driving a car downhill. Yes, you can accelerate with, pedaling or hitting the gas pedal, but going downhill allows you to go faster. So a lot of players, they go down right away and they lose that. Keep your racket up on the way back. Get the racket head level. Your head and the racket head should be at the same height. Now, when you do this, it's vital that your racket is on edge. If we zoom in here, if I took a coin, I could place it on the edge of his racket. His strings are pointing at the camera. This is actually called point your strings to the crowd, as if his strings, like we're the crowd on this video, right? And we're looking at him play tennis. His strings are pointing at us, and this is a mirror that we can see our reflection. And the way you do that is to make sure that your back elbow is up. So this elbow, you can see it's away from his body. There is space between his side and his arm. You want the elbow slightly up. That's going to allow your racket to be on edge. And when it's on edge, it allows you to get your racket square pretty easily at contact. Square meaning your strings facing forward when you're striking the ball. Now, when he drops the racket down below contact, I want you to notice his bottom hand. Notice what his bottom hand is doing. It's relaxing. This is not something that should be forced. I actually recently had somebody send me a video of their backhand to make a video here for YouTube. And it was a very forced movement. You don't want it to be forced. You just want to be relaxed. Notice that the racket head is dropping more than the hands. So here, the racket head is above his hands. And here, the racket head is now below his hands. And that's just a relaxation in his bottom hand wrist. So allow the weight of the racket to overtake the hands. And it's really because then the hands start pulling forward, and that even more accentuates the drop below the hands. But this should not be forced. When it's forced, it gets rigid, it doesn't flow, and you actually lose racket speed. So just let the weight of the racket and let the racket head drop below your hands. At this point, too, it's really important that your strings are slightly closed. If we zoom in here, we can see that. We can see from his frame, this Babolat frame, that his strings are actually facing slightly closed at this point. When you drop down, that is when you are going to close the face so that your racket faces forward at contact. When you hit a ball, you want your strings facing forward. And the way to do that when you're swinging up is to have the strings slightly closed in the back. And I know, you could think of pros who don't close their racket face a ton. You look at Agassi, especially on his backhand, he did not close his racket face a ton. Well, look, if you're Andre Agassi, then fine, you can do that. But Andre Agassi doesn't watch my videos. Players and, recreational and amateur players looking to improve their backhand, that's who watches my videos. So I like to show you not what the pros do, but what you should copy from the pros. And closing the racket face prior to contact to get your strings to face forward at contact is going to definitely help you be more consistent. Look at his hip rotation. We talked about, how he's coiled and he's turned. Watch as the racket drops. That's when he begins rotating. So just before he gets to the very bottom, he starts rotating as the racket drops. Look at his hips turn. We can actually see the stripes on the side of his shorts. Watch here. We can't really see the stripes here on this side. And then it becomes pretty visible because he's rotating. That's his body uncoiling into the shot. So now he's swinging low to high, and this is where you're going to get topspin. Topspin is when you swing low to high with your strings facing forward. That's what's going to impart spin on the ball. You're hitting the back of the ball, but going up as you hit it. And he's not swinging severely up. So he's not swinging like this to get a ton of topspin. He's more driving through this to get kind of a moderate amount of topspin. Now you can see this. We can see completely the side of his hip. That means his hips have really turned into the shot. Now his chest is facing forward, where here his chest was facing the camera. Now I want you to look at the extension. This is just beautiful. I love his right arm. Now, if you're right-handed, this would be your left arm. But this is his back shoulder. His back shoulder arm. Look how it extends out. This is what I call feel like you're handing your racket to your opponent. After you hit the ball, extend your arms out towards your opponent. Most amateurs I teach bend their elbows way too early. It's almost like they're doing a bicep curl, which Fernando has obviously done many of. But when you get to here in most amateur players, this arm, this back arm has already started to bend and bend almost like their elbows are still jammed into their sides. We can see his armpit here, right? There's a lot of space because he's reaching out. Don't bicep curl. Don't bend your elbows as you hit the ball. Extend out. And he's not going to bend that elbow until the finish. You can see he's still extending. This back arm is extended, and now it bends when it goes over the shoulder. So that's when you should bend your arms, long after you've extended your racket towards your target. You see his back foot comes up on the toe, much like a golfer. That's because his hips have turned, and then he relaxes the racket behind his head. So go out and film yourself. See if you're turning your body right away, showing the back of your front shoulder to your opponent. Keep the tip of the racket up when you take your racket back. Keep the racket up when you take it back. Don't take it down. Keep the racket head up when you take it back. And check to see that your head and the racket head are at a similar height. Let the racket head drop down below your hands. Let your wrists relax. When you drop down and then close the racket face below contact, then you can swing up to contact. Again, you can see that the contact is just in front of his front foot. That's when the swing is going to be going up as he hits. He's brushing up the back of the ball for topspin, extending out for a long contact zone, directing the ball where he wants it to go. His arms are still extended out, handing his racket again to the opponent, swinging up over the shoulder and then behind the head. If you start hitting your two-handed backhand like Fernando Verdasco, there is no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2minutetennis.net. You got this.